Hi, this is Jeff Levy, and this is the My Dog Brandy podcast, and we're doing this live. So hopefully you guys are going to enjoy it, at least on the replay, and you can certainly go to the My Dog Brandy page on Facebook if you miss it and you want to watch the replay. You catch it and you see it on your stream. I'm really happy. I've got Diane Hanson and Todd Cameron, who wrote a really interesting book. I went through and read. It's called Management Unleashed, and I've got the book somewhere. But you can see the cover while they talk. I'll go get it. Oh, there you go. Great. It's a really easy read. It's called Management Unleashed. Leadership lessons from my dog, which fits perfectly with this podcast. I've known Todd for since the 1980s. We went to college together. We're actually in a fraternity together, and he's my little brother in the fraternity. So it's especially great to see them, and really want to jump in. They've got interesting, personal dog stories, and certainly we want to make sure we talk to the book. So I'll start with Diane. Diane's got, first I'll give you a little bio. She really has helped organizations develop functional teams, highly functional teams. And I love this part of your bio, caring managers, which a lot of times seems like a total oxymoron. She was the owner for, I can't believe it's 28 years of creative resource development. She's been a mayor of Dewey Beach in Delaware for 6 years. So a pretty varied career. And she obviously loves animals. She's chairman of the board of the Chester County SPCA. And she's got 3 pets. She's got Divot, which is a 3-year-old cat, which is a rescue. She's got Putter, which is a 2-year-old cat. And she's got Willie, which is a 1.5-year-old Papu. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, which is Papillion and Poodle together. They're all rescues, which is really, really interesting. So Diane, I'll start with you. Thank you for being here. Maybe you can talk about, before we get to the book, I'm just really interested, like, what attracts you to rescue animals?
Well, I just love animals, and I know, having been a volunteer at the SPCA and eventually becoming the chairman of the board years ago, how needy these animals are, and how important it is to adopt an animal that's already born and not going to a breeder and having another one produced, and then the other one ends up getting put to sleep or whatever. So being aware of that certainly makes me always get a rescue.
That's great. I mean, Brandy was actually a rescue dog we got at Buddy Dog Humane Society in Sudbury, and I tell the story in one of the podcasts that I actually think when we got him, and he gave me like this giant kiss, which was it. I fell in love, but I'm convinced, given how smart he was, and we got him like 3 months or 6 months old, they looked at us and said, okay, there's a only child who's 8 years old. He's making the decision, and the 3 of them, quite frankly, don't look all that smart. And I could pretty much run this entire house. So I am convinced he actually chose us. It wasn't that we chose him, and he did. He ran the house, which runs completely counter to the strategy in your book. So I think we did take Brandy. We'll get into this, but we did take Brandy to dog obedience, which you really highlight, which is a centerpiece of your book, and how that relates to helping your protagonist work through a tough project. We took him to obedience. He passed. We failed. So and it worked. It worked because we were totally obedient to him afterwards. So there's an interesting story, Diane, that you've got about, which I think is fascinating, how your cats really mentored and helped Willie, who was a bit shy. Can you tell us that story?
Sure. We just adopted Willie about a year ago, and he was a rescue about 4 months old. And when we picked him up, he was afraid of everything. He basically shook with total fear, just totally trembling all the way home in the car. And when we got him home, we introduced him to our cats very gradually. And the cats, of course, are, at this point, Willie was only 6 pounds. And the one cat's 9 pounds. And then we have a Maine Coon cat who's 16 pounds. So the cats kind of looked like, what is that? You know? And, but they immediately took him under their paws and helped him adjust, because he was afraid of, as I said, everything. He was afraid of us. He was afraid of leashes. He was afraid of outdoors. He was afraid of balls. He was afraid of treats. And so the first time I showed him a ball, he ran away and hid. Well, the cats saw this. So about half hour later, when the dog came out from hiding, the cat gets a ball and starts batting around the living room and kind of looks at the dog like, this is what you do with the ball, dummy. And within a half an hour, the dog was playing with the ball. And, you know, through the whole thing, I think the cats just helped a lot, because the dog was so insecure, but yet he'd look and see the cat sitting in our lap and getting petted, and he saw that we fed them and had the water and all that. And I'm sure that behind the scenes in their animal language, they said, it's okay, you'll be all right. And as a result, he adjusted much better over time.
You know, animals have sort of this just innate sense of love and helping. So I thought that was fascinating. Let me jump to Todd for a moment so I can get him in this conversation. Like I said, I've known him since the 80s. He is currently the innovation lead in a fintech financial technology company, helps clients and colleagues really develop their entrepreneurial skills, which, if you're not familiar, it's like being an entrepreneur, but inside a larger organization, and approach problems with a sort of a creative mindset. He's got Millie, which I'm going to completely mess up this, the type of breed, which is a Coton de Tuileries, I guess. Okay, great. Who's 7 months. But you just got Millie in April, and this is your first dog, which I think is your first time pet. Yeah, first time dog owner. Talk about how Millie has changed you know, your life, and what's it like having Millie, and also, you know, you've got kids. What's that been the effect of your children?
Well, it's been a very positive effect on children. I'll be honest.
Just move up a little front, Todd.
You know, I'll be honest. I wasn't quite on board at first. We actually spent. We've been friends with Diane.
Oh, we still can't. I'm sorry, we still can't.
We've been friends with Diane for more than almost 20 years, and we've been coming down here to go to the beach quite a bit. And sometimes when she and her husband would go on vacation, we would actually stay here and dog sit. So they did. This was a treat for the kids. This was part of the vacation, of the opportunity to take care of the dog while we were here. So, but we've had some challenges with allergies, and there's a certain irony here you're going to hear about in a minute. But this Coton de Tuileries is allegedly, and I say allegedly, a hypoallergenic dog. Me, who has never had an allergy in my life, suddenly is coughing up the storm, nose running, eyes watering. But at first, you know, there was a pandemic. I thought, oh my gosh, I gotta get myself tested. Got myself tested. Turned out I was okay. It turns out the end result was that I tested negative, and I'm mildly allergic to the dog, the hypoallergenic dog myself. But how it's really changed our life is, first of all, I think that the situation our country's in with the pandemic, the world is in with the pandemic going on, it was a good time to introduce Millie into our family. She is a puppy, and the kids were available to help with the training. We actually each got our 3 daughters, 13-year-old twins and an 11-year-old, and they each have a day, the whole day. They are responsible for the dog. The minute they get up in the morning. They're responsible for the feeding and cleaning up after them, walking them. I'm not going to say which kid has more accidents in the house than others, but but there are definitely
Then we get to clean it up, right?
certainly days. Yes, yes. But I think it's gone extremely well. I'm very proud of how they handle it. There's always some challenges sometimes, especially the 13-year-olds getting them out of bed. Sometimes they go ahead and take care of the dog. But it's been also interesting, again, it's kind of ironic working on this book without actually owning a dog, and just vicariously through Diane and vicariously through friends and just what I've observed working with them. But now I actually take this dog for many walks. I realize that dogs are the original social network. There's no technology involved. You go out there, you talk to people of all stripes of life and all walks of life, and there's just this kind of bond. But it's also, an icebreaker when for somebody that doesn't even have a dog walks up to you. They always want to know what kind of breed she is, or they want to pet her. Millie, if you're not a dog person, Millie is determined to win you over. So she's got a really great personality. Still working, and now it's also interesting because we actually are beginning dog training on September 12th. So a week from tomorrow, we'll be actually working with a trainer because she's doing fairly well with sit and some things, but she doesn't always come when she's called, and she chews on a lot of things. Fortunately, my wife is petite, so we have a walk-in closet, and all of my shoes are on the higher shelf. So, so I've been kind of okay. I've had one pair of moccasins chewed up, and other than that, it hasn't been too bad. But it's definitely a life-changing. Just go ahead. Yeah, it's definitely been a life-changing experience to the positive, and she loves the beach. This is our second trip to Dewey with Millie this summer. We were in a dog-friendly place, and the beach is very. When the lifeguard leaves at 5 o'clock, that last whistle blows. I am not kidding. Within 5 minutes, there are dozens of dogs in the beach, and they're all greeting each other, and everybody's just kind of walking around, talking to each other. It's really a wonderful experience.
There's one thing about that is that dogs help turn Dewey Beach around. Dewey Beach used to be kind of a dirty little bar town. And when I became mayor, that was what I wanted to change. We started by cleaning up the town, the litter, getting rid of the litter, getting rid of, that sort of thing, and beautifying, putting in flowers and bushes. And then the next step was to bring in people other than people who want to just come and get drunk and party. And the answer was to rent 2 dogs. In other words, wow. People would say, I don't want to rent anymore. There's too many rowdy kids. They destroy my property. I said, make it a pet-friendly condo, and that if they're bringing their dog, odds are they're not going to be drunks because they got to get up early and take the dog out. So it worked, and we started having different events for dogs. We had a Greyhound weekend, and they started a second Greyhound weekend, and we had someone wanted to do a doodle weekend. We do that twice a year now, and they have my favorite is Chihuahua races for Cinco de Mayo. That was one of the cutest things. Wow. Yeah. So, but it just has become known now as more of a dog-friendly, family-friendly town. And this summer, that's all I see are little kids and dogs. It's fantastic. So it's really.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know a lot of beaches that are sort of quote unquote dog friendly. Is that unusual?
Yes, we're probably one of the most dog friendly beaches in the world, maybe, but certainly on the United States on the Eastern Coast. Yeah, and dogs are allowed on the beach year round. The only exception is they're not allowed from 9:30 until 5:30, although as Todd said earlier, at 5 o'clock, once the lifeguard leaves, the dogs are there. But technically 9:30 to 5:30. And the reason is because it's too crowded and it's too hot for the dogs. But otherwise, they're allowed any other time, even in summer.
Wow. Well, I did have one question for Todd. Was there ever a moment in time where when you identified this allergy for Millie, that your family thought of getting rid of you and keeping the dog.
Your sentiment is not unique. Yes, they just have to think about it, finding another family that would adopt me and a rescue dad.
Yeah, I was thinking, because we were if the same thing happened to us, we would the same thing. It would be I would have gone, not Brandy.
Yeah. So as a result, we made some changes. The dog is not allowed in our bedroom, and my man cave is also my man cave. Sorry, we made some changes. The dog is no longer allowed in our bedroom, and I also have a man cave, which is actually serving as my office for the foreseeable future. And the dog is not allowed in there either, but he will go into both places any chance he gets. Even if the door's even just not latched shut, he will get on her hind legs and push it open and come in. And so those are some of the changes we made. And so far, things are going pretty good. We have a lot of hardwood floors in our home, and and
that's good.
Yeah, so it's been working out pretty well. He does. I'm adjusting.
Great. So let's get into the book a bit, because I went through it and I found it. It reminds me of a couple of books where there's a sort of a story and there's a protagonist, and you get drawn in, and you really kind of weave this this whole integration of side by side. Well, actually, let me put it this way: side by side, there's really two stories. One is training Dewey, right? Training Dewey, and getting a project done at work, and even with a tough boss sort of overhead. And you guys do a really interesting and a fabulous job of interweaving the lessons that are not revolutionary, but and anyone that has gone through obedience training could clearly recognize, but you integrate that into the story of how the protagonist sort of overcomes. So I'd love to know, first of all, talk about the writing process and how you guys came up with this and what it was like.
Well, it actually began about 50 yards from here on the beach. The first time I met Diane, when I came down here, I guess it was early in 2003, and she had me Tina. I'm sorry. Where did you lose me?
Oh, no, it's okay. I got you now.
Okay. So I'd taken a look at the manuscript, and we, as you know, I'm a storyteller, Jeff, and I wanted to, so basically we took a lot of her concepts around leadership and management and tried to build this narrative and story around it. And it involves, it's very different from a lot of the corporate writing articles and things, our presentations have been, because, a lot of this involved walking up and down this beach, literally. And then back then, Diane still lived in Chester County, so this is all in the off season. So we're literally walking on this beach in February, which, by the way, is wonderful now.
Still nice.
Yes. And just talking over ideas, and let's make sure that would a person really act this way in this situation? How many times have you actually been in this situation? How do we tie it all back to the training, the obedience training, and how those things work together? So trying to spin this thread together that is still instructional and meaningful, and a little bit of my corny way. So if the joke makes you cry and it's a pun, it was probably the part I was.
Well, I have to say that some of this stuff was, for me, it was autobiographical. A lot of it.
Yeah.
I truly was I was one of the first females in management in the pharmaceutical industry, and I was supervising a man who was at that time probably 40 years my senior, and looking down his nose at me and said, "Well, what do you know? I've been in this business for 30 years or whatever," and it was a challenge. And so this guy would constantly be a pain in the butt. He would call all the time, and you'd ask him to do something, and he'd be obstinate about it, and he'd try to convince you that it was a dumb idea or that you shouldn't do it or couldn't be done or whatever. And I realized when I took my dog to dog training, that she had me just take the dog and lead him a certain direction. And she could see from that immediately. She said, you need to let that dog know who's in charge. And she said, watch this. So she went over to the dog and yanked his chain, literally, yuck. And the dog just followed, like, where'd you want? The dog just followed her right along. And so that's when the light went on. I started realizing this particular gentleman that was such a pain in the butt was just like my dog, that I needed to yank his chain and let him know I was in charge. And so that's exactly what happened. That the next time we talked and he was being obstinate, I said, look, I want this done and I want it on my desk by Monday. And there was like this long silence. And it was one of those, whoever speaks first loses. So I didn't say a word. And eventually, after about a minute, he said, well, as long as you put it that way, you have a suggestion how I can do it? And it's like, yes. If he knew I learned that in dog training, oh my goodness. But I did. That is a true story that actually happened. And he was much better after that. I realized he was used to more of an autocratic, domineering type of management style, which was not my style. And I had to change my style with him to just say, look, just do it.
It would be great. Can you, because I've talked a little bit about the story, but can you maybe give just a quick synopsis of this story so people know what it's about? Because like I said, it's interesting how you've weaved a story about business into obedience training.
Well, basically, it starts as I said, from a real life story in terms of a management situation where I saw the analogy between training dogs and training people or managing people. So in this case, it starts off with my being a very stressed out individual working, as most people today are, quite frankly, and then stuck with a dog that was unruly. And some people said at that time, well, why don't you just take the dog back to the SPCA? I said, you don't do that when you're chairman of the board. So I was really in a rock between a rock and a hard place. And so I slept on it. And when I woke up, I said, I know, I'm taking that dog to a police dog trainer. It wasn't just a trainer. It was someone who was going to get them all lined up. And it worked. So then it was easy from there to kind of figure out the story that we wanted to tell based on the principles and wrapping the story around that. So Todd, you want to add to that?
So it basically is a timeline. There's a timeline involved with a dog training class that has to be completed at the same time that she's on this really busy project. So she has to kind of carve out the time for this. And there's a team of mentoring. There's another executive that's also one of the ranchers, is also a dog owner, and they kind of compare notes. So there's a lot of different relationships going on here. And really, so it's the timeline of the dog training in conjunction with the timeline of this project, and how a lot of these things directly impact one another. I'm always been a fan of the mashup, where you take one concept, okay, let's do high noon, but let's do high noon in outer space, or that kind of concept, bringing two different disciplines together to tell a story and to also teach people.
And I'd like to say that what Todd added to the book most, along with some terrific writing, was a lot of humor. And one of my favorite lines in the book was when we're at the dog training class and all the dogs are getting to know each other as they do. And Todd says, dogs mastered the art of ass kissing long before corporate America. That's my favorite line in the book.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Do you guys believe that there's a place for dogs in the workplace, that people should bring their dogs to work?
Yes. I have people here in Dewey who bring their dogs to their shops, and it actually brings people into the store.
Yeah.
It helps business.
Well, I think a lot of people have dogs in their workplace these days, Josh.
They're at home.
I know.
They're at home.
I know. That's
and the
true.
dogs like it, I might add.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And I think we talk about the issues as people begin at some point to get back to even more a normal environment where maybe they spend even more days at work and work from home. I'm not sure we'll ever go back to, I think this will change us forever. But what's the impact on the dog? Because now they're they love it. You're there 24 hours. And so I think there's going to be an interesting ramification. They'll all be in dog psychologist or something, but something's gonna it's gonna impact them. I think it's gonna impact them. Oh, this is great. How do people I'll put up the website right now, but how do people find the book and get it? Like I said, it's not a long book. It's very easy to read. You can practically read it in one setting, and it's really interesting. How do people find it and order it and everything?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's available on Amazon. But secondly, they can go to our website, managementunleashed.com, and they can order a copy there, or they can call one of us if they want a signed copy. We'll be glad to sign one and mail it out.
Absolutely. I did actually see a couple copies at Browse About Books in downtown Rehoboth yesterday.
Good.
Signed copies.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, and how do they reach you? I don't know if you want to give your emails out, but how do they reach you if they want a signed copy and all that?
You can get it through the Management site.
Right.
And also, for people local to Wayne, Pennsylvania, it is also available through the Main Point Books in Wayne, Pennsylvania.
Great. Well, I just want to I just really want to thank you both for being on this show. This is, as you know, the whole reason I set this up was because Brandy, which he was a case hound, which is basically, if I don't know if you guys are familiar, but a case hound is essentially a walking stomach, a 40 to 45 pound walking stomach that eats everything in sight. And they're alpha dogs. I mean, they will run the house and take over. And I did it because of the life lessons that he taught me, being an only child throughout life. And so I've gotten some great feedback, but I love having guests on and talk about their pets and talk about the lessons. And you guys have been absolutely great. I highly recommend this book. It's a fabulous book. You'll learn something about business and how to deal with difficult people in difficult situations, but it's really kind of told through the lens, I think, of going to obedience training for your dog and kind of taking those principles in. So if you guys want to, after we end the broadcast, hang on for a minute because we can still talk for a second. I've put up the URL, which is Management Unleashed. Go there. It's actually a really great website, and you can learn more. And it's I've had the opportunity to talk to Todd Cameron and Diane Hanson. And the name of the book again is Management Unleashed: Leadership Lessons from My Dog. So thank you guys very, very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pleasure.